friends. This is Wheezy from the What is True podcast. Hope everyone is doing rather exquisite. This is a small clip, and if you fancy listening to the entire episode, please visit the link tree below. This is due to the heavy censorship on this particular platform, so I hope you guys understand and hope to catch you on these other platforms. Much love. Very, very fun and informative show. I am joined by my man, Mr. Jason Bassler of the Free Thought Project. How are you, sir?
Doing well, my friend. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been listening to you for quite some time. Love the way you think, man. And I feel we are on that same plane. You guys are free speech proponents, and you guys even question a lot of things that I question. And I hope to get into those topics as the conversation develops. But before we get going, for those that may not be familiar with you or your work, if you give us a little taste.
Yeah, absolutely. Are we talking like origin story, or just what we do with the Free Thought Project and Police the Police, or
everything, man? Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to your whole origin story. What got you down this path?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's so funny. I think most of us have been so propagandized, so brainwashed by the social norms and government and all these other powerful institutions and entities that it's almost kind of weird that we have to give like this opener, this explanation of how we became, part of the Church of Truth, I guess, in a way, because I think we all have had that breakaway moment where you realize, hey man, like everything I was told, everything I was taught, like 98% of it was all lies, so so my origin story, my awakening process, if you will, starts back. To be honest, like I'm from the Bay Area. I grew up in the Bay Area. I was playing in punk rock bands. I always had a taste of counterculture. I always felt like that was something that was in my blood. So I was doing activism at an early age, but I would say more or less the Occupy Wall Street movement, which was way back in 2011, was kind of the catalyst that made me realize that in the age of information, ignorance is a choice. And hey, look, like we all have these things in our pocket. Why do I not understand my own political ideology? Why do I not understand my own philosophy? Well, there's a pretty normal, average response and reason for that. It's because, look, nobody was taught how to think critically, really, right? So thankfully, we had this, we have the internet, we have all this information online. And around 2011, I realized that, hey, I'm just not familiar with like where I stand with my own positions on a lot of this stuff. So it kind of just opened up a can of worms in my head. I just decided to go as hard as I could, trying to learn as much information as I can, absorbing, a bunch of different sources and outlets, and eventually started to kind of realize that, hey, I'm a libertarian. I'm somebody who believes in freedom. I'm somebody who believes in accountability and transparency, who believes in the non-aggression principle, self-ownership, and stuff like that. And that actually partially was something that was shown to me through the lens of social media, and including a lot of great people who are doing a lot of great work during that time, during the golden age of social media. But most specifically, the great legend himself, the greatest of all time, Ron Paul. He was really the one who, I guess you could say, directed my own philosophy by reading his books, listening to his words, his speeches. And during that time, of course, that was right around when he was running for president in 2012. So I started to kind of get involved doing different things in various aspects, banner hangs, tabling, stuff like that to promote Ron Paul. And during that process, I was, as I was saying, learning as much as I could, and decided around that same time in about 2012 to start Police the Police, which is my online organization, which, we try to document and archive police accountability, police brutality, abuse of authority, police misconduct, and stuff like that. And about a year later, I found the co-founder of the Free Thought Project, our editor-in-chief, Matt Agarist, who was writing for an outlet that I was writing for at the time. And we both more or less realized that, hey, like this website that we're working for isn't quite what we're trying to do. This isn't quite our cup of tea when it comes to our philosophy and activism. So we started the Free Thought Project in 2013. And man, it blew up. It immediately took off. Around that time, you got to remember that this was before Black Lives Matter. This was before a lot of other entities and organizations kind of came into the police accountability movement. So people were very much interested in the police accountability from a libertarian lens. And that's what we were providing. So within a very short period of time, we blew up. We were able to put together a team of 7 writers, a social media team. We were reaching millions of people. We were making, thousands of memes a year. We were writing articles, about 6 articles every day. We were putting out videos. In fact, in 2018, we almost had 1 billion video views through the Free Thought Project. And just in the sake of keeping this short, I'll expedite it down to later that year in 2018, we were taken down by both Facebook and Twitter at the same time. And we lost our network of nearly 6 million followers. And since then, we've tried to kind of rebrand, recreate, and I don't know, I guess try to really rebuild our organization with, our social media presence and everything. And since then, Twitter and Facebook has taken us down several times. And it's just been shadow ban after shadow ban and throttling and all that stuff, man. And most recently, we were actually hacked. So our Facebook pages, one of which was Police the Police, had 900,000 followers, was recently hacked. So nevertheless, we're still here persevering. We're still here doing what we can to share this kind of information and continue pushing forward. But it's been a long, arduous journey, and it's certainly no shortage of challenges. But my heart's in this. This is what I love to do. This is my passion. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. So I'm going to keep on keeping on until the day I die.
That's an awesome story of perseverance. I've gone through my own bouts of being canceled and censorship, but nowhere near the level you have gone through. So it kind of makes me say, when I get sad about where I could have been or what I could have done, hearing what you have gone through, it's like tells, I got an inner voice saying, quit being a bitch, quit being a pussy. He's still pushed on, and you guys have hit some big ass numbers. My numbers are minuscule in comparison, but it still sucks, man. Especially when you're gaining traction and you're ready to start blowing up, and then boom, the censorship hammer hits you. And that's one of the topics I wanted to hit with you, because you have been through this. It's amusing how much of it there is out there. And for people in the normie world, I don't think they even have a clue of how bad it really is. You'll even hear some people, oh, that's just a right-wing talking point. That doesn't exist. And then you can point out to simple things like try finding deep dives on Jeff Epstein on YouTube. You can't even talk about that. I had she was a good friend of mine from the UK, Maria Clark. She did these pedo hunting expeditions where she would act like a decoy, and she would post it on Facebook. And I saw her do this on her Facebook live streams. She would have 500,000 views within 2 hours. I mean, massive live streams, catching these pedophiles. And she was constantly getting taken down on Facebook. She had to keep making new fucking profiles, and she would get hundreds of thousands of views, millions of views, if you will, and make a new profile. And she would still keep doing it, keep coming back. And I think a lot of people in her position, I gave her kudos for that, because a lot of people, one bout with that, you're like, all right, fuck it, I'm done. And that's what censorship, in my opinion, is designed to do. So if you're gaining traction, we're going to shut your ass down and make it even that much harder. If you get kicked off of YouTube, for example, we're gonna blacklist you on Google. So yeah, if you do come back, all right, that's fine. But now you're gonna be extra censored. I mean, I have a YouTube channel that I rarely promote because of that. It I used to have hundreds and hundreds of people on a live stream. And I thought I was on top of the damn world. Now I'm lucky if I get 60, 70 goddamn people on a live stream. And um I put my clips on YouTube and now they get like 20 views when I used to get thousands and tens of thousands of views. And it's easy to get your motivation killed, man. And I think it does take a special kind of person to keep pushing through that. And so that was one of the biggest reasons I reached out to you, man. I mean, what I have gone through, it pales in comparison to what y'all have gone through. And so, do you? This is probably a stupid question, but do you see it getting worse before it gets any better, or do you see maybe a light in the tunnel? I personally don't think it. I'm black pilled as hell when it comes to it. I just see the grip tightening, especially when you see what's going on to people that protest what's going on in Palestine, in college campuses. You see even harder erosion of our civil liberties under this administration. I'm starting to wonder if the Biden and Kamala administration was a setup specifically for this one. I'd like to get your thoughts on that. Uh, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that theory is certainly valid, man. I think that the right, who was kind of more fervent and adamant about kind of restoring some of our constitutional rights and pushing back against the censorship during the Biden administration, they probably would have probably continued that same trajectory with that continuity and thinking and frustration if Kamala had been elected. So I'm right there with you. I think in a lot of ways this has kind of quelled the outrage, and what it's done is turned it more into the team sport politics. Where it's like, hey, well, it's our team now who's in charge. We have to own the libs. I'm willing to, disregard, completely ignore what Trump's doing over here, all these bad things that all the crazies on Twitter are saying that Trump's doing. I'm willing to ignore all that just because our team is in power now. And look, like, we have to give them a little bit of time. It's only been a couple months. So like, we're all moving in the right direction. It's 5D chess. I mean, there's 1,000 ways that these people justify it in their head that it's okay when their team does it. But that's exactly the problem, right? Because that's exactly what the left was doing when Biden was in power or Obama was in power. So yeah, we see the pendulum kind of swinging back and forth from the left to the right. And at the same time, as you're aptly noting there, our rights are being eviscerated. In fact, yeah, this whole freedom of speech conversation on our campuses, this is something that it should be alarming to the right wing. These conservatives, the small government conservatives, constitutionally based conservatives, like, this should be a huge red flag. Yet at the same time, they're over here justifying it because, well, the Fox News talking points, right? There's vandalism. There's some aggressive nature by some of the students who are protesting. They're yelling at the Jewish students. I mean, all these other things, and they're conflating them into being First Amendment issues when they're really not. When I'm here saying college students have the right to protest in Columbia University or any of these other universities, I'm not conflating that into vandalism. Vandalism, it's its own act, it's its own situation, and they have its own legal repercussions, right? So the fact that, I think the right has been steered by largely a lot of these propaganda talking points. It doesn't take much. They don't need much to have a position on these things. They just need a few talking points. So to your question there, no, I don't see it getting better. And I don't think it was a dumb question, by the way. I ask the same from our guests on our podcast frequently. Usually towards the end of the podcast, I'll ask them, like, okay, we've heard some big talk from Elon Musk, the quote free speech absolutist, about how Twitter is, completely different now from the old regime. We've even heard Mark Zuckerberg come out over the past month or so and, hey, I'm a libertarian now. I'm all for liberty. I'm all for free speech. We're going to roll back the fact checking moderation and all that stuff. And no, I don't believe it. I don't believe it for a second. I think if anything, what it is trying to appeal to the Trump regime and trying to get on the good side of the new administration, because there's going to be more opportunities for them. It's going to be more advantageous for people like Jeff Bezos Larry Ellison and Sam Altman to all be associated with the Trump regime and to be in good standings with them. And we already saw Trump within the first couple of days of taking office speak about the $500 billion that they're going to be allocating towards Project Stargate and creating a new AI infrastructure and the AI digital arms race that's going on right now. So I think a lot of this stuff is just posturing. I think that they're doing it to present themselves in a better light, not only because Trump is now president and they see those opportunities, but because also the populist right wing has shifted so much the conversation about free speech in this country, or they had before Trump took office anyway, that it seemed like that was aligned with the right side of history. And so that's what a lot of these people are. Only thing that they really care about is the public perception, right? And I guess to be fair, let's give it a little bit of time here. Let's see, if there are some significant changes that do happen with algorithms on Facebook. I'm not too hopeful. As I mentioned there, our pages were hacked, and this is something that like we've been dealing with since January, the mid January. I think it was actually the third week in January, and we still haven't had anybody help us out. We've had a few people say they're going to help us out. So I don't know, man. I know that's kind of a trivial example there, but I mean, if they actually cared about their users, right, they would actually be trying to help us recover our pages. And the fact that we've had so much bad blood with Facebook over the years through censorship, it could point to something larger happening. It could even mean that their internal support teams are compromised. Who knows? That certainly could be the case. And at the same time, where you were saying there with YouTube restricting your views and your reach and stuff like that, that absolutely happens, man. Once you get on these social media platforms bad side, once you're blacklisted, they're going to make life as difficult as possible for you. They're not going to give you any reach. In fact, that's part of why it's been so challenging trying to get our pages back through Facebook, is because I've been blacklisted for so long now, being our social media representative for the Free Thought Project, that I didn't even have an option to place support tickets within Facebook, because every time I would fill out all the information, all their forms, you go to hit send and the button's grayed out. And I've experienced this over and over again, specifically after we tried to appeal our pages being taken down the first time. They will let you appeal once. After that, good luck. Good luck trying to have any type of communication through, the avenues that they actually allow for you through these, social media platforms. So, I support your friend. The person who continues to make new accounts. I mean, that's basically what this is. It's all about just a big game of whack-a-mole. They don't want us on their sites. We're going to continue to stay on their sites. We're going to continue to share this information. And generally, I am a proponent of private property, but when it comes to the public square in this sense, and the fact that these entities are not purely private entities, they're public-private partnerships with government. And I'd be happy to get into that more, but I think there's been more proof than ever within the last couple of years through the Twitter files and a lot of other documentation that's come out that proves these aren't solely private entities. So I really have no problem continuing to stay on their platforms as a digital nomad if they like me or not, because ultimately at the end of the day, this is all just a chess game. They're playing a chess game, and so are we.
Yeah, well put. It's funny, the Facebook thing. I used to be pretty active, a lot more active on Facebook. I used to love debating people. If there was a certain subject or topic, let's have a good, nice back and forth. And I swear, I wish I would have recorded the date and documented the date, but it was literally overnight that everything changed. Like, I used to be able to have, all right, I disagree with you here, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, the next day, comments hidden. I was like, what the hell am I seeing this? What am I seeing here? And really, ever since then, I just, man, I don't really mess with Facebook anymore. I kind of just keep it for, just to stay in touch with family, if anything, but
Sure.
I don't trust the platform. And I suppose all platforms, I did a show last night with Mr. 7 C's, Um, that dude is like a young Danny Castellero, man, where he shows these corporations how even sponsors and you see how everything is connected, man. It's just like a giant web. This guy's connected Peter Thiel and Rumble, and then the connection to the Trump administration. And when you see these webs all intertwined, that's what makes me black pill. Like, god damn, man. Um there's really it's getting tougher, man. And um i I really don't see any good news coming out of it. And you know, I don't know how even this conversation, we're essentially thought criminals at this moment in time. Um, I remember hearing some of the hardcore lefties saying, "Oh, the Trump is bringing in fascism." I still think it's extremist thinking that way, but god damn it, man, when you're seeing people getting shipped off to El Salvador just because they are alleged gangbangers. You know what I mean? And one of the things that I've been going down the Abraham Lincoln assassination pretty hard.
All that.
Uh,
Yeah.
the la- yeah, the last couple of years, and one of the things that has stuck out, I especially in our truth community, we hear a lot about the Constitution being violated and trampled on. And as I've gone down into that era, I'm like, man, the Constitution didn't mean jack shit even in the 1860s. So it really, really isn't nothing new under the sun. And so now I'm starting to wonder if it actually ever meant anything. If it was just a bunch of sweet nothings printed out, put it on this document called the Declaration of Independence and whatnot, but it's never really meant shit. And maybe it was just out there as a facade to let the people have this illusion of freedom. you know yeah, look, guys, we're creating a new nation, and we're gonna respect, because it, when you look back at it, they were talking about how each individual and their inalienable rights. And meanwhile, fucking Jones Plantation had all these slaves
Sure.
chained up. So has it ever really meant anything? Is what I'm starting to ponder. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, man. I think the ideas within the Constitution are valid for the most part. There's some wonkiness in there for sure, but I think the idea of a piece of paper from hundreds of years ago that we've never consented to or signed a contract for, and the idea that it's somehow going to limit government, I think that's the delusional thinking. And while I do appreciate kind of more of like the natural law type of approach that the framers originally intended for the Constitution, just the idea, as you're highlighting here, is ridiculous that it's going to somehow stop a tyrannical government. Now, I don't know. Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I couldn't say. It sounds like you're probably more of a history expert than I am. I would probably suggest though that when it started to become out of vogue, and in the sense that it was no longer being respected, is when government started to grow uh, and expand its size pretty rapidly. And when the ruling class realized that, hey, look, like we don't even have to pretend to be aligned with the Constitution anymore, because our apparatus has become so powerful that there's really not much they can do to stop it legally. And I'm sure you'll see a theme here. It's about is how much can we get away with, and it not being something that is viewed as being completely illegal, right? So the same thing that happens within the police accountability world. It's like they could go as far as they want because they know that they could legally justify it somehow, and that tends to be a pattern throughout government in general. So that's why I align more with the libertarian anarchist point of view. I do believe in the idea of self ownership. I do believe in the idea of non aggression and these things that are more or less kind of the pillars that are generally needed in society. And morally, if we could adopt those, then the Constitution is kind of null and void anyway. But again, from like a philosophical point of view, I think that what the Constitution was trying to establish was some type of boundary for government, while also um, highlighting what our rights are, our natural born rights are. And so that's powerful. And that alone in itself is admirable. But again, the idea that somehow that's going to limit $1 trillion machine, the most powerful, most dangerous government of all time, which we've basically risen out of the smallest, most limited government of all time. It's grown into the world's largest, most dangerous police state. I think that's ample evidence that it simply just didn't do its job. So I am not a proponent of the Constitution, but I do at least try to point to it as something that our lawmakers are supposed to be restricted by. So I think there is still some utility there, but the idea that it's supposed to be this one document that saves us is silly, And I hear you about being blackpilled, man. In fact, this is a subject that I've talked about a lot recently. I get it. I understand it can feel a bit daunting at times, especially with the cards stacked against us, especially with all the psyops and propaganda that they force feed us. I get it, man, completely. You also have to remember, though, like we've only had the internet really accessible through social media for maybe about 15, 20 years. And in those 15, 20 years, like we've made a lot of progress comparatively. And we've actually pushed back so much that there is more transparency. They feel more obliged to be transparent in a lot of ways. And that's a big thing, In fact, again, going back to the police accountability conversation, this is the one tool that's actually brought more change in society than any type of legislation, any type of government solution.
And you just showed a cell phone for those
Sorry,
audio
yeah,
listeners.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I have to do the same thing for our podcast. But yeah, the cell phone that we all carry on us has created more change within law enforcement than any type of politician writing incremental reform policy, because there is a level of accountability that's associated to a viral video of a police officer violating somebody's rights. And what these people have on their side is the illusion of authority, of the illusion of legitimacy. And once that the game is over and political authority, the illusion of political authority is no longer, then these people have no power. So to a certain degree, they have to play ball. They have to pretend as if they are serving the public. They have to pretend like they're on our side. So we do have the apparatus through social media, although, albeit it is difficult and challenging with censorship, but we do have the ability to continue to question these things, the ability to push back. And that's important, man. If there's a will, there's a way. There's always some type of way around these things. And, you can't stop the signal, like the 3D printers always say. There's this whole community of people that are 3D printing guns, and they have this saying that you can't stop the signal. You can't stop the internet. There's really no way. And I know I've heard of the EMPs and the power outages and like all these other things. There's still ways that people communicate with each other. And largely, the global economy is attached to the internet in many ways. So the power structure doesn't want to just take the internet completely offline. So I don't know, man. I'm still hopeful in the idea that we still have the opportunity to make some positive change. In fact, once again, talking about my podcast here, that's how we end every podcast. We always ask our guests for a white pill question, because it is, while important to point out what's going on, the dystopia, the destruction, the debt, all that stuff, we also have to remain positive. We also have to talk about the things that are moving in the right direction, the things that are working in our favor, the things that we can do to take back the the authority in our own lives, to create what we're trying to create with our own being, our own existence. So I hear you, man. It is daunting at times, and it's, to me, all the more motivation that we just need to keep moving forward. We need to keep working harder, and I think ultimately we are winning. So,
Yeah, no, and I'm not completely, I'm not just gonna, oh well, everything sucks, so I'm just gonna lay down. For me, I guess the way I look at it is, you have to learn to live with it. Be awake to the shenanigans, because And I hear what you say, but I guess what brings in that doubt again, let's just look at what the Trump administration has done the last few weeks. And one thing I appreciate about your show is that you bring in people that do view things a little different, and you entertain those thoughts, man. And I love hearing those intellectual sparring sessions, between two people that respect each other, or a couple of folks that respect each other. It's
Sure.
nothing vicious at all. But what brings back some of that doubt is when you see, for example, Elon Musk and the Doge team uncovering uh, corruption and wasteful spending. Mike Benz going on the Joe Rogan podcast and uncovering it all. And I, as I saw this, I was skeptical. I'm like, okay, when are they going to talk about Steve Bannon and Cambridge Analytica? I've talked about that ad nauseum on my show, because a lot of the things that Doge and Mike Benz were talking about that the left was doing, gaslighting people with information, was exactly what Steve Bannon's Cambridge Analytica ties were doing. And that's what helped prop up the QAnon movement. That's what helped incite the J6ers in many ways. And it was all bullshit propaganda. And they scraped a lot of that data farming from Facebook. They profiled who would be the most likely person to vote for a figure like Donald Trump. And lo and behold, the profile came back as most largely evangelical conservative types, patriot types. And so that's why you see a lot of Trumpers, which is hilarious, because before 2016, if you look at Trump, he's just this New York scummy
Democrat.
businessman type. Yeah, Democrat, voted Democrat most of his life. His kids were lifelong Democrats until he started running. So they manufactured a completely different image. And so when I see shit like that, let's go to the Epstein files. They were going to release truckloads of Epstein files, is what Pam Bondi told us. And then when you realize how she helped cover up his Trump University nonsense, and then later becomes AG, and now she's the one in charge of releasing Epstein files, and especially when you take into consideration how close Jeff Epstein was to Donald Trump. All of that, I guess, hope that I could, potentially see it gets eroded, because it's all psyops. I feel like it's almost like that boiling frog, where we're just slowly cooking, man. Our rights are getting taken, and so you hear these Epstein drops, JFK files being released, all these little things. It's like little tidbits of meat to get you excited, but in reality, they're nothing burgers. Let's just put it that way. It's complete horseshit. And so that's where I'm like, man, screw all this. Yeah, and you did touch on the police state, and policing stuff. I did, if you don't mind. Well, maybe you have a couple of thoughts on what I just said, but I did want to share afterwards a clip of a police interaction, and like to get your thoughts on it. But yeah, I'm sure
Well,
it seems like you had stuff to say, so I don't want to move on.
Yeah. Well, it only because it touches on something that I think is, to me, it's glaringly obvious, and I don't know how many people have really. I'm sure there's been plenty of people have put out this theory, but I won't touch on everything you said, but let's just think about this in context, right? So, the Bush years, war on terror starts, war on Afghanistan, Iraq starts. The left is outraged. The left, I was down in the streets of San Francisco protesting with them, all the anti-war protests for a couple years. I mean, I get it. I understand. There was a lot of outrage about the Bush years. So then what do? And this is all talking in the terms of a bigger picture here as to how we could be possibly being played through this psyop. What did they do? Well, they rolled out this slick talking. I mean, he's dressed well. He seemed to know his stuff. He seemed to say all the right things.
Hope and change, baby.
Yeah, this liberal god. Of course, he was just fairly new on the scene. Nobody had really heard of him, but all of a sudden, all the media's talking about him. Barack Obama, right? And the left flocked there. And yeah, hope and change. You nailed it, dude. And everybody, all my friends, and like I said, I grew up in the Bay Area. Thought, oh, we finally got this made. We finally are going in the right direction again with this country, especially after the 8 years through Bush bombing and destroying the Middle East, all the conflict and chaos going on over there. Finally, we're having somebody come in, and Obama had all these wonderful promises. He was going to label GMOs. I mean, all these other things back in the day that seemed to be significant and important. He comes in, and guess what? Well, it's just more of the same. Meet the new boss, meet the old boss, right? Yeah, I mean, the same exact stuff, the same continuity in government, the direction that government was going through the war state, through the welfare state, all these things, all the printing with the debt and the police state. The police state probably got even worse under Obama, right? I mean, things escalated pretty drastically during those years. So people
the Smith and Smund Act, where
there were. Yeah, dude, we could probably go down the list, right? So by that time, the right was furious. The right was like, we need to change things. Things need to go in the right direction. The debt's out of control. I mean, all these things. And of course, the right back in 2015, 2016 looks a lot different than it does now. But so what did they do? Well, Trump comes along, to your point. He starts speaking all these conservative talking points, and he's saying all the things that they seem to like. There probably was a little more pushback during those years, 2015, 2016, by the small government conservatives, including libertarians, a little more hesitant, right? But they still felt like this was going to be a better option than Hillary Clinton. So everybody got on board. Trump came on, and guess what? More of the same. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. All the wars continued, and people like to say that Trump was an anti-war president. That's wrong, and I've been tweeting every single day over the past week exactly about how that's wrong.
Yeah, man. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but
sure,
that was one of the biggest things that irritated me whenever I heard, oh yeah, if we get Trump in there, we're avoiding wars. I'm like, no, I remember him flirting with war with Venezuela. During his administrative years, right. He was flirting with Iran, war with Iran. What the hell are you talking about? And it just seems people memory hold, shit that's convenient to memory hold. It's a joke. And sorry about cutting you off, but it just
no.
I just wanted to bring it up because people forget these little episodes, man.
I think you guys, you and your audience probably understand what I'm trying to illustrate here. So by that point, the left was so put off by Trump by 2020 through everything that Trump was doing. And some of this fascistic, approach to things, his policies and stuff, like they were just done. And so it wasn't so much they liked Biden, but Biden was the complete opposite, or at least that's what they pitched to us, right? That's what the mainstream pitches to us. So what do? Pendulum swings back again, back to Biden. And it goes even more in that direction now, right? Now we're starting to fund gender surgeries and like all these left-wing platitudes and all these left-wing positions that seemingly aren't part of government's operations, not part of government's duty. And so the right gets frustrated. And then by 2024, the right votes in record numbers for Trump. And now Trump's pointing at how we need to make police immune because the radical left and Biden's policies made it difficult for them to do their work and defund the police. And so it's just this pendulum that goes back and forth. And the fact that more people haven't recognized this is truly disturbing to me. So anyway, man, that was just the one point I wanted to make, because it seems like that should be something that we wouldn't have to say, but it's almost like we have to point both fingers at it for people to even realize that it's something that's happening and we're being played.
Yeah. I had James Corbett a while back, and it was an honor that he played our conversation on his featured interviews. I have been listening to Corbett for damn near over a decade.
Sure.
I'm like a hardcore fan of his, so that's how I found you through a featured interview.
Oh,
you
wow.
know what I mean?
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. And so to find, after listening to him for so many years, to finally get played on a featured interview, I'm like, hell yeah, dude.
Dope, but he's one of my favorites.
Oh man, I love the guy. But yeah, that's what we were talking about, precisely this, and he ended up titling the episode on his platforms as the greatest psyop ever pulled. Is this left-right bullshit, man? Because every few years there's a good guy and then there's a bad guy.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
everyone's like, we need to change. The parallels with Obama and Trump are crazy, because during the Obama years, people forget that people were tired of the wars in Iraq.
Yeah.
They were exhausted with the bullshit. And so, like you stated, this young, handsome guy that could speak your ear off, great cadence, very,
It's bigger.
very statesman-like. I mean,
Sure.
embodied what we believe to be what a president should be in every aspect, the way he conducted himself, the way he carried. Now, I believe it's all bullshit. Now, I think it was all theatrics. But this is when, as a normie, this is what I bought into it. And in 08, you had a lot of people that had voted Republican their entire lives. All of a sudden, shit, man, I want some goddamn hope and change. Let's do it. And that's what they did. And now you fast forward to the Trump years, man. Same shit. Washington is corrupt to the core. We need someone to flip everything upside down. And yeah, Trump grabs women's by their genitalia, and he has locker room talk. But shit, I can get over that, because he's gonna bring us change, man.
Yeah.
He's saying it like it is. And people fell for the shit again. And look what's going on with RFK Jr. right now. People are surprised. Oh my gosh, RFK Jr. is embroiled in some sex scandals. And I almost fell for that shit, because RFK Jr. appeared on James Corbett's show, and his book, The Real Anthony Fauci, I read it over, I read it a couple of times over. I'm like, man, what an awesome book. He's exposing Anthony Fauci. I almost fell for it again, man. I'm ashamed to say it. But then you started hearing the murmurings of his ties to Epstein. I'm like, wait a minute. And I started seeing his body language react to the Epstein question. I'm like, oh, this guy's guilty as shit. And then you see how he's beholden to Israel. And it's insane. I was like, all right, man, I'm off. I can't believe I almost bought into this shit again. So that was pretty much the last stand I took, man. I'm like, even when you think, and maybe this is how black pilled I am these days, where even when you think someone is like, damn, we got someone on our side finally, they turn out to be scumbags, man. It's all smoke and mirrors at the end of the day. At least that's how I view it, man.
Absolutely, brother. No, I agree. There's that saying, never meet your idols, but I would take it a step further and say, just don't have any idols to begin with. And you should probably be good. I know that's not, it's easier said than done, but I'm right there with you. I actually didn't spend all day on Twitter yesterday, so I'm not completely caught up in the sex blackmail controversy. I did see a couple of people alluding to it, but I don't have much to say on that, unfortunately. But I think the game is pretty obvious, and I think we both kind of highlighted it pretty well. And they will pose themselves as being the saviors, and when the time comes around to actually be the savior, man, they're nowhere to be found. And that's why we shouldn't have saviors. We shouldn't even believe in the concept of saviors, because you own yourself, you lead yourself. You're going to be the only person to save yourself. So just keep it aligned with that, and you should be straight. And start putting your faith into political authority, and it's never going to get you anywhere good.
Yeah, 100%, man. And my little white pill, because I'm also starting to believe that labeling people as black pilled, and even identifying quote unquote as black pilled, is a disservice. It's a psyop. I'm starting to believe, because all these people that that do believe in the system, like oh no, Trump is a white hat. He's uprooting shit. Look at Doge. You're just black pilled. Trust the plan. It's a different version of trusting the fucking plan that is complete nonsense. And so I'd rather be quote unquote black pilled, because I'm in tune. I'm not going to fall for that shit again. And so my white pill is just to communicate with my peers, communicate to the people that I interact with, and let them know, don't fall for this shit, man. Because the next time they pull a psyop, you're not going to get emotional about it. Like the whole COVID nonsense. I live out here in Venice, Florida, median age 69 years old, and um, I even though I was already in the conspiratorial leaning things, I was still kind of worried. The first few days, I would be lying, I would be dishonest. Like, oh yeah, I already knew it was bullshit right away. No, I was like, damn, what the hell's going on?
Sure.
But then a few weeks after all this stuff was going on, and out here in Venice, Florida, no one was masking up. Median age is 69 years old. My neighbor should have been piles of bodies everywhere. It's the second oldest uh, demographic in the entire country. No hospitals were overfilled. I'm like, damn, man, this was another goddamn psyop. But what helped me quickly realize it was a psyop was because I already didn't trust the government. You know what I mean? If I
Exactly.
had already trusted in the government, I probably would have been boosted and vaccinated up to the gills. You know what I'm saying? So this is when you can catch the shenanigans early on. um it helps you, and it helps you wake up others, is what I believe. That's my white pill to it. I mean, the other thing that drew me to you, and I hate to be jumping around, but I think it's relevant, is the Trump assassination attempt.
Mhm.
I saw you on Twitter going ham. You were calling bullshit on it, and I thought it was so awesome because I thought it was fake immediately, and I was like, how the hell am I in the fringe is thinking this is absolute horseshit. And I
Sure.
did want to make it a point of bringing it up to you because you are a super intelligent individual. I'm just a
Thank you, brother.
goddamn garbage man. But for
Ah,
you to question it, um, that's I was like, man, it drew me right away to you on Twitter. Uh, any thoughts, or if you'd like to expand on that whole Trump assassination? With I know we only have a few minutes left, but I definitely wanted to throw that in there and get your
yeah,
thoughts on
yeah.
it.
Well, I mean, hey, look, like I don't know what happened for sure, right? But I that's part of what we do, right? Is we just ask questions. And when you start asking enough questions and there's not enough answers, and you start poking holes in the narrative, then I just leave people to their own conclusions and let them think what they want to think. But Um, I think there's some parallel there as to what you're saying about the COVID years, because if I probably hadn't been in this world for the past 12, 13 years, hey, look, I could have saw the Trump shooting, quote, assassination attempt as well as being completely legitimate. And again, I'm not saying it wasn't, but being in this world for as long as I have, knowing how to question things, knowing how to poke holes through the narratives, and examining things critically, well, guess what? Like there are a lot of problems with the fact of what they tried to suggest happened. And also, one thing I just tweeted this out last week. Like Trump talks about himself so much. That's always been his mo. That's always been part of his his personality. Like, why isn't he still talking about this? Like, you think he would
Yeah,
still be talking about it as much as he could, right? Like, I almost lost my life. I had a near
yeah.
death experience. He would be working that into every angle he could
That's
and
his
every speech.
personality, man. That's
Absolutely, dude.
in his nature, and he's kept mum about it. It's
Absolutely. And then if
it's wild.
it's wild, absolutely. Not only that, but if you look at pictures that surfaced, like what was it, like 13 days after the shooting, his ears completely fine. And the mental gymnastics his supporters were going through to make justifications and defend him, man. Well, he could have had some plastic surgery. The ear heals very fast. I heard it all, bro. I heard it all.
Yeah,
Maybe, but you also have to ask yourself, like, okay, what's the common sense here? What is logic dictating? What's the chances and odds of these things? Like there's a hierarchy
yeah.
of probability there, right? And it's like, man, there was just too many problems with that. So,
Well,
uh,
and then when you see the
mhm,
similarities to other things, I told you, you may have not heard me say this, but I've been going down the Lincoln assassination, and in the Lincoln assassination, so once I saw the parallels to the Lincoln assassination to Trump's fake assassination attempt, um, I was like, yeah, it just solidified it for me. It's complete bullshit. It was nonsense because I then went to see what did Trump think of Lincoln, he was on the Rogan podcast talking about spending time in the Lincoln room. He views Lincoln somewhat as a friendly competitor. He holds Lincoln in a high respect. So in the Lincoln assassination, um, Lincoln was sitting. His left ear was close to the left wall. All right, at Ford's Theater. Wilkes Booth comes from behind, and he's a right-hander holding the gun. The bullet lodged behind Lincoln's head, behind the left ear, and lodged under his right eyeball. So try to picture. So if I'm right here, trying to make that shot with the right as a right-hander, he would have had to turn his wrist around.
Yeah.
So mainstream historians said that Lincoln turned his head at the wrong moment and got him killed. Trump turns his head at the right moment and survives. It kind of gives me the vibes of John McCain. Remember, like, oh, I love my heroes that don't get captured. One of those kind of moments. He's bigger than life. He's better than even Lincoln. He survives these assassination attempts. The other similarity, man, in the Lincoln assassination, you had photographer Alexander Gardner, who photographed Lincoln's death plate. He photographed all the co-conspirators, those lovely mugshots of the co-conspirators. He's the photographer of that. He also photographed, allegedly, John Wilkes Booth's death plate, which was later destroyed. I wonder why. But what are the odds this guy is just photographing all these guys, just being there? He's the main guy. And then in the Trump assassination, you had Douglas effing Mills, who just so happened to be here in my backyard on the morning of 9/11, photographing that infamous picture of where Bush is at Sarasota Elementary School, and they're reading to him "My Pet Goat," and then the guy, one of the White House guys comes in and whispers in his ear about the 9/11 attacks.
Right.
And Douglas Mills captures that once in a million photo right there. And then fast forward to Butler, Pennsylvania. Douglas Mills is the one that, with his 20 frames per second camera, catches the bullet streaking behind his
right.
ear.
Yeah.
What are the goddamn odds? I mean,
what are the odds?
One coincidence, all right, I suppose so. Two coincidences, well, but when you have so many of these, all right, it's complete horseshit. Another personal take that I've made and I hadn't heard anyone say was, and I put it this way: think about walking around your home and you stub your toe. What's your first reaction? You go and reach for it, right? That's
sure.
Let's say you cut your finger or you stub your finger, whatever. You just go and reach for whatever the injured. It's just a natural human thing.
Sure.
Trump goes allegedly he goes on the RNC, a couple days later, even on the Rogan podcast, he said his hand was covered in blood. There is no goddamn blood on any picture. Don't take my word for it. Go look at the footage yourself. And he repeatedly tells people that his hand is covered in blood. But if you look at the rest of the footage, he never goes back and touches his ear. So this is an unnatural reaction. If you really had something hit you on the ear, you would be clasping it. To me, it would have been more believable if he would have been clutching his ear saying, fight, fight, fight. You know what I mean? Like, damn, right. I almost got smoked right now. But he never does it, man. He never does it. His hand has 0 drops of blood. And so I know you're not sure one way or the other. For me, it's so damn obvious that it was a completely fabricated affair. And so the next question people would say, well, why would he fake it? Easily. Look what happens with these technocrats immediately. Like Elon Musk is like, oh man, Trump is our guy. He almost died. He almost got his head blown off. You see Mark Zucker, Facebook's Mark Zucker, who was anti-Trump, anti-conservative. Now he's got a new hairdo. Now he's hip and modern with MAGAs. So it was all a stage, man. It was just theatrics at, on the big stage.
And look, man, I'm not one to just blindly write things off as well. I'm right there. I'm open to the idea that it is all theatrics. And to be clear, I'm not somebody who's just like edgelording just to edgelord. I'm not a contrarian just to be a contrarian, right? Like I'm not just trying to make some type of conspiracy theory because that's the cool thing to do to get clicks. Not suggesting you are as well, but I think that's what a lot of the Trump supporters, that's how it came off to them, is that, oh, it's just another edgelord trying to get clicks through some baseless conspiracy theory or whatever, right? But I do think that this lends a lot of credence to what we were talking about earlier, which is like if they were trying to put somebody into office, right? And we know there's that quote, like presidents aren't elected, they're selected. This would have been a great way, a performative way to build a lot of momentum for Trump. And I remember quite a few people in the Truth Liberty community being like, oh, another assassination attempt, like he's for sure winning this election. Like that was just something that seemed like a no-brainer, right? Because the media is giving him all this attention. It almost turns into like a coordinated media campaign. And although there were like anomalies, of course, within the incident itself, right? Because like you see the gunshot, or you see you hear the gunshots and nobody reacts, like, and nobody in the audience, right? You think people would be ducking or like something would be happening.
Where's the picture of the alleged, and I'm sorry to cut you off. It's just I did go deep into it because it's not like I was trying to, like, I wasn't trying to be an edgelord. I mean, it just seems so freaking obvious. You look at the people behind him. You can count how many people have phone cameras at this exact moment that should have got that instant. There's 4. I circled 4 cameras. Where are those images? Where is that video? To this day, we haven't seen that image. Now they try to pass this goofy looking mirrored image that allegedly showed the bullet going through his
I remember that.
And it was completely AI. And it was easy to debunk because if you looked at the people in the background in the original footage, they're on this side, and in the doctor footage, now they're on the other side. So they just flipped it so it looked like it was the other ear going through that. Super easy to debunk. And to this day, like I said, none of those cameras that should have had the shot have been seen. You fast forward to the RNC, even inauguration day, there was an instance where Trump is coming down. You can't even see Trump because everyone has their cameras out. There's just a sea of phones. Everyone's recording him walking down onto the stage. But apparently, for the Butler, Pennsylvania incident, everyone was on their best behavior. Trump told them to look at the screen, and everyone
That's
did
right.
it's just, I don't know, man. I'm sorry. It's just so freaking obvious at this point.
Yeah. And, my reservations are probably more based around the fact that it's going to be complex to stage an assassination attempt on this scale with that many people. I would say, not to say impossible, of course. And I say that only to.
Do you want to hear my theory on that?
Hold on, let me just finish this thought.
For sure.
I only say that because I don't think most people thought it would be something within their wheelhouse to be able to stage a pandemic as well. And more information continues to come out that was exactly what happened. So the whole world's a stage, and we just have to be open to the idea that these things are happening, even if we don't have the concrete proof. Like, that's why we ask questions. That's why we poke the holes, So my bad. Go ahead, bro.
No, man, my bad. And I don't want to. I want to be respectful of your time.
We could go a few more minutes if you want to, like, get into a few other things. I probably have another 15 minutes or so. I just got my kids and my family in the other room all holed up because it's raining here. So
yeah, no, you're good. Yeah, and thank you again, man, for doing this. I know weekends are hard for you, and for me, unfortunately, weekends are the best time that I can do shows. And I've enjoyed every second of it. This has been awesome.
Same,
but yeah, I mean, I don't know what you feel about the moon landings. I mean, when people say, like, they have a hard time accepting that they would fake an assassination, I'm like, dude, the moon landings, in my opinion, and I do shows with engineers and astrophysicists that debunk the moon landings using science. It's not just some dude sitting on the couch drinking beers and debunking the moon landings. These guys are intellectuals. And so if they could fake the moon landings, if they could fake weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, if they could fake a killer virus, I'm not saying, I'm not dismissing, maybe there are viruses, maybe there aren't. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we now know that even if you got COVID, the survivability rate was just incredibly high. But the measures taken, we saw videos of people getting pulled out of subway trains in China, and
Yeah, exactly.
freaking semis full of dead bodies in New York. The propaganda behind it, if they could fake all that shit, man, nothing is out of the realm of possibility, in my
Right.
opinion.
No, I agree.
But yeah, man. So I did want to touch on the police state, and we have, I believe, with talking about censorship and the loss of civil liberties, 100%. But just a little bit of police auditing. I want to play this clip for you and get your thoughts
Sure,
on it. So the background to this video, I was going to work at I get to work around 4 a.m, little after 4. And anytime I plan out my day, I try to hit my long runs first thing in the morning to avoid traffic and whatnot. And so I had this particular morning, I was up near Tampa. I'm in Sarasota. So under normal traffic conditions, it would have taken me at least an hour, if not more, to get to this destination. So I was like, let's go first thing in the morning. I'm busting ass within the speed limit, obviously, but I'm going down. I'm getting off on this exit, and as I get off the exit, I know I'm not very familiar with that area. I only go there. I rarely go up there. But as I get off, it's dark. Oh, not only that is it dark, but it's foggy, super foggy. You'll see how thick the foggy was. So I was running with my beacons on my truck. I drive a large CDL vehicle. I've got a large box on my truck, so I don't have a rear view mirror. So if you are directly behind me, I can't see you. I have no idea no one's even near me. I could only see you if you're a distance behind me, and I can see you through my mirrors. Now I got you. Now I know you're behind me. This son of a bitch was tailgating me so close. I had no idea anyone was behind me. It was freaking 5 a.m. No one's on the damn road. I thought I was the only one on the road up until this moment. And so when I get off the freeway ramp, immediately I could see that up ahead, about 100 feet up ahead, the lane merges. So I'm thinking I'm the only one on the road. So I started to merge onto the left lane. And then as I'm already committing, I see little light pop up. I'm like, what the hell? Like, it surprised me. I'm like, what the hell is this freaking idiot, dude? You almost ran into the truck. I didn't even know you were behind me, but I just committed. I just kept going anyways. Because I did that, all of a sudden I see blue lights turn on. I pull over to the side, and my demeanor was calm, because you're going to hear I'm pretty freaking pissed off in this video on the first segment. But I didn't record this incident, but I was kind of calm. I knew I didn't do anything wrong. I had my signals as I was turning. And this cop comes up and super aggressive. Dude, you could have killed me. I'm like, you were tailgating me, bro. I didn't even know you were behind me. He goes, I'm gonna call your employer. I'm gonna hit you with everything I can hit you with. So I'm gonna fuck up your CDL. Super aggressive, threatening me. Once he threatened my livelihood, that's when I lost it. I'm like, I've got a family to take care of. Sure. And now you're threatening to ruin me over this shit when you were the fucker tailgating me. I was incensed, and we were having back and forths back at each other. And I was like, all right, man, I need to calm down. I'm getting pissed. I'm super aggro at this moment in time. That's when I got my phone, and this is the clip. So this is the setup for what you are about to see right here. And just look at the body, the cop's body language. The son of a bitch is obviously lying. All right, here we go. I had just got off the highway. It's foggy, as you can see. Look how foggy this is. So I had my beacons on, and yeah, I was making my way down. And this officer just comes up to me and gives me a straight up attitude, trying to get me with every damn thing. And so, okay?
You already got enough stuff going on.
Here we are. What's your name?
I'm not giving you a ticket.
What's your name?
I'm Trooper Cope. I'm not giving you a ticket.
Trooper Cope.
Yes, Caleb Peking.
What's your badge number?
4728. I'm not even giving you a ticket.
Yeah, I'm documenting
I'm
this.
literally just giving you a
You
warning.
said you're gonna call me. I'm gonna call your department because I'm documenting how everything
That's
is.
fine. That's
Is it
your right
is it a
to-
foggy day, Officer Cole?
Yes, it is. No other
Okay,
commercial motor vehicle.
That's why I have my
Lights flashing.
beacon on.
Okay, so when you have your flashing lights, whenever you have your turn signal, you can't tell the difference in between either because you have now a flashing strobe light in my face while you're trying to change over.
I have my signal on when I was
saw it
making
now
that.
after, which is why there's no offense, there's no anything. I looked at it.
I told you it was on.
That's why I'm not writing you anything.
I gave you
came up to
a
apologize
courteous,
for,
but
you know, this
I gave you a
interaction.
courteous. Did I come off courteous at the very beginning?
Initially,
I only got pissed off when you started to.
okay, well, you have
tag-
a flashing light in my face, right? So I can't tell until very last second, and you put it on very last second when you're already committed into the lane change. I'm not going to argue with you about it. I'm not writing you a ticket. You got enough stuff going on. I'm not going to hem up your CDL. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm not going to complain to Southwest. You do whatever you.
I had just got off the highway.
So,
um,
yeah, man, what a freaking clown that guy. You could see by his body language, you know, he was like, "Oh, your beacons were on, so I couldn't see you turn your signals." You couldn't see my signals because you were riding my ass so close. You know what I mean? If there would have been some distance, he would have been able to distinguish between the two. And then he's like, "Oh, guess what? I'm not going to give you any citations. I'm not going to get your CDL." Like he's doing me a favor. You know, that's the attitude he was coming up. I'm like, "No, son of a bitch. I didn't do anything wrong to begin with. You shouldn't have pulled me over." So I was a little aggressive with him, but that's why, man.
That didn't seem
what are your
aggressive to
thoughts?
me. It sounded like you were being polite but firm. And I think that's exactly the direction you have to go when you're dealing with law enforcement, particularly law enforcement with large size egos. I didn't really get enough of a video clip of this guy to really know if that's kind of his MO or not, but it sounded like, yeah, he's probably just a typical cop with a chip on his shoulder. Now, you definitely did the right thing by asking for his name and badge number. And guys, that's something that you always have to do whenever you're dealing with law enforcement. And in fact, if you do that right off the bat, like you did, Wheezy, good job there. It lets them know that they're dealing with somebody who understands their rights, who understands accountability and transparency. And you also have now the means to report it to their department or higher up or something. So you
I
absolutely
did that.
Yeah.
Oh man. So just an update. I did try to contact his higher up.
Yeah.
I never got a call back. This is, as a young Mexican American man, this isn't my first rodeo getting pulled over and racial profiled. I had an instance where I had a killer year in real estate. I was a young 20-something-year-old. I was driving a brand new car, a young 20-year-old Latino. I got pulled over by this cop who I later found out profiled me as a drug dealer, some kind of gangbanger. You know, how dare this young brown kid be driving such a nice vehicle? You know, that's against the rules. So for 5 miles over the speed limit in a place where the speed limit wasn't even posted, this guy comes up to me, points a gun at me. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? This was about 15, maybe almost 20 years ago. And now with all the bullshit going on, I'm like, damn, that motherfucker could have shot me that day. Because I did lose my shit with him. I'm like, why are you pointing a fucking gun at me? I didn't do anything wrong. And I fought it in court. Judge dismissed it. He made me pay the fine because I was rude. I was using foul language at him. I'm like, dude, he's pointing a fucking gun at me. You know, like everyone's gonna react differently when you have a goddamn gun pointed at you. You know, my personality, I'm like, what the fuck, man? And other people are like, oh shit, everyone's different, man. So to penalize me because I reacted the way I reacted, I thought was garbage. But I filed a complaint against this son of a bitch too. Nothing ever happens. And so over the years, as I've gotten older, what I feel is the biggest problem with the policing is that the lack of accountability with these motherfuckers. I'm a garbage man. I've always been a garbage man since I lived out here in Florida. And if I leave a damn lid in the gutter in accident, the homeowner calls it, and I get talking. I'm like, dude, it literally was an accident. But there's repercussions. You have to be on your best behavior.
Yes.
There is accountability to face if you do otherwise. When these sons of bitches do this kind of shit, nothing ever happens. And so I wouldn't be surprised if this. I know he came off as a certain way, like, oh, hey guys, super friendly, but initially he was cussing at me and telling me how he was gonna fuck up my CDL. This was his direct words. And so now I'm kind of heated, man. And so as soon as I started recording him, holy shit, now he's a different guy, kind guy. He at one point, I don't think I played it that long, but he's like, dude, I don't want to be the reason for you to have a bad day, man. Please have a good day. Fucking gaslighting me, dude. It just jokesters, man. But that's what I've come to believe now, man. This could be solved if there was some actual accountabilities to these clowns.
Sure. And the camera's the great equalizer, right? I mean, that's really the only avenue of recourse that we have, right? Because you're not going to be dumb enough to try to defend yourself physically. Obviously, that's going to end bad because they're a gang. They're the largest, most dangerous gang that exists, right? So, and it's funny too, man, that, they absolutely hate it when we profile them as all being bad cops. Yet that's what they do on a daily basis to us. And like you were just saying, young Latino man driving, well, that's profiling, right? So they have no problems profiling us, but we can't profile them as being all bad. And it really highlights the double standard within law enforcement. And there's endless amounts of double standards within law enforcement. Now, to touch on why there was no recourse, because you reported this guy to his higher ups, to his department, and far as you know, nothing ever happened, right? He was never punished, never had even a slap on the wrist.
His sergeant said he would call me back. I never received a call back.
You couldn't even get a call back, right? Exactly.
I emailed him too, and I haven't got an email or a call back.
So. Exactly. And this really highlights the dichotomy between the public and the private sector, as you did with your job analogy there. If you leave a garbage kid lid in the road or on somebody's driveway, they're going to call about it. And it's the same mentality that we apply to the market that we don't apply to government. And it's only because we've been so propagandized to believe that these services are inherent to our society, like law enforcement, that we don't ever think otherwise. And the problem with that, and this is where it all stems from, and this is where the left got it all wrong during the Black Lives Matter years and George Floyd and all that stuff. They wanted to point to it being an institutionalized racism problem. While, as your story highlights, that is definitely true, and that's definitely significant to a certain extent, what the real issue is an economic issue. It's the fact that these people operate within a monopoly of claimed authority within law enforcement. They don't actually have authority. They claim the authority, and they claim to be a legal monopoly in the initiation of force. And because of that, our tax dollars are funded and funneled to law enforcement, to these police departments, if we like it or not. It's the same thing how all government operates, right? It's not something that we voluntarily hand over. It's something that they extract and take from our paychecks. So that being the case, any type of business that doesn't have any incentive to appease their customers, they're never going to have any reason to ever be accountable, to ever be effective, efficient, or to ever improve with their services, because one way or another, they're going to be funded through the state tax apparatus. So that is exactly what the problem is, guys. And I've said this until my face is blue. I've been screaming this from the rooftops for years, and I never got any attention or play from the mainstream, even though we had Police to Police, which was the largest police accountability platform anywhere on the internet up until 2018. Didn't matter. People do not want to hear this as being the solution. And the solution is to privatize, or in another word, because I know people hate the word privatize. It seems scary. It seems capitalistic. But look, what we can do as a different alternative to this is voluntarily funded community police firms. And that is going to be the only legitimate solution to overly aggressive police. And that's what we have right now. And it doesn't matter where you go, anywhere in the country, they're always going to talk down to you. They're always going to expect a certain amount of subservience. They're going to expect to have authority. It's the police culture in itself that has brought us to this place where police think that they're above the citizens in this country. And it's all because we don't have any other option to take our money elsewhere. We can't get together in our community and be like, okay, this is a pool of funding for a security protection firm that's actually going to do the jobs that we want to actually protect us. And let me remind you, Wheezy, police aren't obligated legally to protect us. And that's been established in the courts over and over again. The first time being Warren versus DC back in the 70s, and even more recently with Uvalde and the Parkland shooting, where cops were just standing around. And well, guess what? They don't actually have a duty to protect us. They have an obligation, a legal, lawful obligation to uphold the law, and that is it. So what we need to do is take our money away from this system and funneling our tax dollars into voluntarily paying for threat management services or security and protection firms that actually listen to the community and actually have incentive to work within the boundaries of what the community wants. So that would look completely different from what we have right now within law enforcement. Law enforcement right now is largely a legalized racket for revenue generation. And we see that through all the traffic infractions and traffic enforcement. In fact, what happened with your case there and the video just showed me, there's no reason why that officer couldn't have just taken your license plate and sent you a notification or a ticket that you could probably challenge later in court or even online these days. But the fact that they have these, the fact that they pull us over for these traffic infractions, not only does it make your life more dangerous, but it also makes their job and their life, their job, of course, their job and life more dangerous as well. And it's totally unnecessary. It's totally unneeded. What we could be doing is just, sending these infractions through the mail. You get a number of strikes, something happens to your license, yada, yada, yada. There's many different ways to go about this rather than being pulled over on the side of the road and dealing with an overzealous, hothead, egomaniac cop with a chip on his shoulder who is probably going to scream at you and, exactly your experience, demand some type of respect and authority. And unfortunately, that seems to be the prevalent type of officer that exists in this country. So to wrap it all up, there's a different way to go about this. It's the libertarian solution. Libertarians do not believe in monopolies, and law enforcement is no exception to that. In fact, any government's monopoly should be a huge red flag. We're all taught in public schools that electricity monopolies are bad, gas monopolies are bad. Yet when it comes to government, well, we just all accept it as being, well, these are just inherently services that the government provides for us, and there's nothing we could do about it. And that's bullshit. We need to change this from the inside out. Like I was saying, incremental reform never works. We've been protesting police brutality since the 1880s, as far as I'm aware. The Haymarket riot was the first time that they were actually protesting police, and people were killed because of it. And since then, we've been promised over and over again throughout the years that government's going to fix policing. They're not going to be so heavy-handed. They're not going to be killing us and violating our rights. And what happens? Absolutely nothing. Nothing changes. We get more promises through government. Nothing ever changes. So what we need to do is dramatically redefine what protection and security services are in society, and that's by voluntarily funding them in our own communities.
Well said. Well said. Jason, thank you so much. I truly love this conversation. Maybe there'll be a chance down the road to, do it again. I thought we hit a lot of stuff in just a short amount of time. Where would you like people to find you? And everyone, please follow those links. We are facing some very, very hard and difficult censorious times. So this is really, networking with other folks in the space is the best way we can grow our audiences. Where would you like people to find you, my man?
Indeed, brother. Thank you again for having me on, for this opportunity. It was a great conversation. Definitely enjoyed it. You could go to thefreethoughtproject.com. That's kind of our home hub. We're still putting out about 2 to 3 articles every day. And at the top there, you'll see a tab for our podcast. So definitely check that out. We put a podcast out every week. Always great guests. In fact, we just had the great journalist Matt Taibbi on just a couple of days ago. That should be coming out on Monday. So check that out. And then I also have some of my own work over at jasonbassler.com, guys. And that's where you're going to be able to find my book that I published in the end of 2023, which is called 3 Ways to Prepare for CBDCs. I know the CBDC conversation has slowed down a little bit since the Trump administration has more or less kind of played ball saying that they're going to ban them. But if you scroll down there a little bit, you'll see my book, 3 Ways to Prepare for CBDCs. And then also, guys, we wrote a book that came out just last year called Little Free Thinkers Know Your Rights. And that's that book on the right there. And what this is more or less just trying to give our kids the ages 6 to 12, a foundation to understand their own rights, to know their rights and be able to apply them. What we found through the Free Thought Project over the years of covering police violence stories is that oftentimes it would be younger kids who would get caught up and entangled by law enforcement, and they just didn't have the rights. They didn't have the knowledge to kind of be able to push back. So check out that book, guys. It's actually based off of a whistleblower cop who was fired from her department for blowing the whistle, Officer Jody. She's on the cover there. And it goes over due process and the First Amendment and a bunch of other stuff, guys. So definitely check it out. That's at littlefreethinkers.com, or you could also get it at jasonbassler.com. But otherwise, sorry for the very long-winded answer here. Instagram, which is jason.e.bassler, and Twitter at jasonbassler1 are kind of my biggest hubs as far as social media presence. So you could check me out there and follow me there. But I do appreciate your time and appreciate everybody listening. And yeah, thanks, man.
Thanks, Jason, man. That was truly a treat. I've been listening to you for a long time, man. And then to hear your story at the very beginning, how all the crap you have gone through and you are still persevering, still pushing out content, man. I can't commend you enough for that, man. Thank you for all you do. And we'll definitely stay in touch.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, let's do it again.
Yes, sir. Be safe now. All right, y'all. That was Mr. Jason Bassler. Hope everyone enjoyed that. Click the links at the bottom of the description there. That was a banger of a show. And we got to support people in the space. So we're all going through censorship bouts, and finding people like Jason. I found him through James Corbett, and it's just a network of shows and that you may enjoy. So this is why we do these shows. Everyone, thank you for coming out, and I hope everyone has a lovely rest of their Sunday.